Greetings, everybody. And once again, Happy New Year. I'm recording this note on January 3rd, the beginning of 2026. It's morning and I'm still resting in bed, still trying to recover from a really intense holiday season. And I've been reflecting and doing some journaling and came up with a new topic for my next video. And something I like to do when I'm planning a video is I like to talk it out first. And I thought, why don't I go ahead and do it as a voice note today? That way we can have a little conversation. If you have any thoughts, you can respond to me in the comments. I love reading your notes. I love reading your thoughts and your experiences, your opinions. If you have a different opinion of mine, I welcome that. And so I've been contemplating the subject of, I'm laughing a little. I don't mean to laugh at the subject. It's a very sensitive subject, actually. But I just recently learned this term. And I just think it's one of the most clever terms I've ever heard. And the term is Perspecticide. And Perspecticide, in my opinion, is a much better term than gaslighting. But it essentially means the same thing. I never liked that term, gaslighting. The problem with it, I don't like words that have, like the sound of the word has absolutely nothing to do with the meaning. I think it causes confusion in the mind, which I think is never a good thing. It really bothers me when words have either opposite meanings of what they literally sound like, or if the word just has absolutely nothing to do with the meaning. So the term gaslighting comes from a film called Gaslight, which is about a man who does perspecticide to his wife. And perspecticide is what it sounds like. It's the killing of someone's perspective. It's the manipulation of the way they view reality. It's performing psychological abuse meant to confuse the subject and make them compliant to the will of another person. That's what gaslighting is. And as you can hear in the definition, gaslighting has nothing to do with it. The only reason why the film is called Gaslight is because the husband uses the lights to make his wife believe she's going crazy. He turns the electricity on and off, and when she sees the lights go off, he tells her that they're actually on. I haven't actually seen the movie, so forgive me, but that's the premise as I understand it. But perspecticide, now this is a term I can work with. This term makes a lot of sense. And this is something that happens to people who are in abusive situations for a long period of time. And I was just researching it. I asked Google Gemini, which is the first time I've used this. I decided to test it out by asking Gemini to give me a breakdown of this idea of controlling somebody, or the question I asked Gemini was, tell me about controlling people, being able to make people more easily controlled by way of, I wanted a comparison between 3 different types of abuse: ritual abuse, domestic violence, and being an adult child of an alcoholic. And I wanted to understand where the research is across the board for adult survivors of these 3 things: ritual abuse, domestic violence, and adult alcoholic parents. So if their youth was spent in either of those situations. Because from what I understand about mind control, it's very easy to manipulate people who have been through these types of abuse. And I was thinking about the idea of coercive control and how easy it is to manipulate somebody and what this does to your voice. Of course, my perspective is always, let's get to how this affects the voice. And so I use the term trauma in a very loose fashion. It's a very generic word because trauma could mean anything. Trauma could mean domestic violence, or it could mean you were in a car accident. Trauma means the same thing in both circumstances. But of course, in my channel, I'm not saying that the car accident you were in took away your voice. I'm not saying that at all. You all know what I'm referring to. You know I'm referring to basically abuse. I'm talking about a long-term experience with an abusive situation where you were not allowed to speak up, you were not allowed to defend yourself, and you lived that way for an extended period of time. And even when you got out of the situation, you found it very difficult to use your voice, sometimes physically, but usually across the board, psychologically. And that this programming of being in these controlling and abusive situations has made it very difficult for you to be comfortable not only using your voice, but just expressing your truth as you are. And this gets in the way of creating art. It makes it very scary for people to make works of art, because even if you mask the art in metaphor or symbolism, there's still a very real programming of fear around speaking your truth. And the reason why I wanted to make a video about this particular topic, Perspecticide, coercive control, is because it's not just about a fear of expressing oneself. It's about having a total lack of confidence in one's own perspective. Because when you are in a situation where there is a dominant personality who is controlling everything about your life, or at least many things involving your survival, meaning food, money, shelter, even love, because we all need love. And so if you grew up with a parent whose love was conditional, which I'm sorry to say, but I would seriously question whether that's really love or not. But it doesn't really matter. The point is, when you were growing up, you needed the love of your parent. And if it was conditional, if it was dependent on whether you complied with the ideas, the rules, if you agreed to shut down your own personality in order to gain the love and affection of your parent, that's going to mess with your mind, and it's going to make it impossible to trust yourself. Now, in chakras, in the chakra system, which I've been talking about lately because I'm developing this course, and I'm starting to introduce to my audience that I do use the chakra system. And just as a side note, the reason why I put it off talking about this is because I know that some people are a bit turned off by anything esoteric. The truth is, I fully embrace all philosophies. I embrace the sciences. I embrace philosophy. I embrace religious ideas. I'm not attached to any of them. I just look anywhere I can for information to try and get clues about what is actually affecting us and our ability to communicate and express ourselves. So I find the chakra system incredibly helpful. And so one of the things I like to offer to people who have like a sort of instinctual reaction against anything that talks about this stuff is, if that's you, think of the chakra system as metaphor. You don't have to believe in a literal chakra system. It's more symbolic than anything else. Each chakra point is symbolic of a different element of human experience. These human experiences affect our ability to thrive and survive. And so there is a chakra point that's actually in the throat. It's the throat chakra. And when you do a sound healing practice, the mantra is, I speak my truth. And I speak my truth is an element of trust, trusting oneself. And so the reason I love the chakra system is that it understands that if one of these chakra points is out of whack, so to speak, then they're all messed up. If it's like an instrument, if you have a guitar and one of the strings is out of tune, but the rest of them are in tune, when you play that guitar, it's going to sound bad. It's going to sound out of tune. The whole thing will sound out of tune, even though it's not technically. But that's why I like using the chakras, because it gives me a jumping off point to explore areas where I may be blocked. So a lot of people in my audience have a blocked throat chakra because they are afraid to speak their truth. They don't trust themselves to know what the truth is. And until you can fix that throat chakra, until you can start speaking your truth with courage, then you're going to keep having imbalances all over the place. Your root chakra of safety is going to feel off because you can't feel safe expressing yourself if you don't feel safe in your life. Anyway, we'll talk more about chakras later, but the point I'm trying to make here is that people who are listening to this, you guys and people who are listening on my YouTube channel, who are watching my videos or reading my articles or in my community, you get what I'm talking about here. You understand that something was done to you, and you understand that it was wrong, what was done to you. And now you're doing the hard work of healing this blocked throat chakra. You are gaining back your trust in yourself. You are taking one step at a time towards feeling strong in speaking your truth and expressing yourself authentically and who you are. And that's a very scary thing when you've been through something like the abuse situations that I've already mentioned. When I was working in the shelter, the women's shelter, the DV shelter as we call it now, domestic violence shelter, I would tell my friends, I would tell people about my job when they would ask me. And every now and then somebody would ask me the question that everybody has heard someone ask, which is, why don't these women leave for good? Because the truth is that most of them return. We understood that there was I think it would take, I can't remember the exact number, it was something like 6 to 8 times it took to leave an abusive relationship before they were finally done leaving and they were finally ready to move on. But it would take several times. They would keep returning. And people who didn't know anything about this would ask with an innocent curiosity, why don't they just leave? Why do they stick around for this? You can always tell when somebody asks that question, it's because they've never been in that situation. They've never been, and good for them. Bless their hearts. You know, what fortune, what great fortune that they were born into a family with parents who respected their will and who didn't abuse them, or they've never been in a situation where they were being controlled or gaslit or manipulated. And so they have no idea what this does to a person's mind. You surrender to another person's will after you've been traumatized enough times. That's what trauma does to a person. They start to become 100% stuck in survival mode. And survival mode is a fear response. A fear response is fight, flight, or freeze. So the body has become hijacked. The nervous system has become hijacked when it's living in a constant state of survival. So when someone has lived in a constant state of survival, aka a child growing up in a house with alcoholic parents, or a child who has been witnessing domestic violence her whole upbringing, her ability to perceive reality in a truthful and honest way has become quite challenged. And when she or he leaves the home and grows up, that indoctrination, that programming is still active. And it's going to take a long time to overcome that habitual fear response in the body. That's why those of you who have experienced these types of things, you struggle to use your voice because the fear response causes the muscles to become tight. And so you have chronic tension in your shoulders, in your chest, which makes it difficult to take long breaths, which are essential for feeling relaxed and also essential for communicating comfortably and with ease. It messed with your head. It messed with your ability to trust yourself to know the truth so that you can confidently express it. And all of these things were programmed into you during those years where you were living in a state of coercive control or perspecticide, which there's something about words when you learn a new word that just makes so much sense. I find it liberating personally. This word perspecticide, even though it represents something absolutely horrible, there's something about knowing this word because it just so simply articulates this one very complex experience. And so if you have been a victim of perspecticide and you are now a survivor of it, and so therefore you are now on a healing path and you are doing everything you can to heal your voice so that you can learn how to be confident and trust yourself and speak your truth and express what's really going on inside of you without any kind of fear that you're going to be punished for it. So that's the topic I want to talk about in my next video. I think it's a really important topic. There is so much traumatizing happening all the time. You can hardly open up a news source without feeling some kind of secondary traumatization. Can you now? And it's triggering. It messes with your head. And it will stunt your growth. It will stunt your healing path if you do not remain vigilant and aware of what's happening. And that's why we do the vocal practices. That's why we do the warm-ups where we stretch our muscles in order to relax them. We do the audible sigh. To release that tightness in the chest that comes from a fear response. We work on our breathing so that in our normal day-to-day moments, no matter what's happening, no matter what's going on around us, we can always come back to our breath and we can come back to our voice so that we can reconnect with our truth and ourselves and who we are. And that's how we become truly sovereign human beings. Sovereign meaning totally in control of your will, your perspective, your breath, your truth, your voice. I believe that you are intelligent and your perspective matters. And so I want you to keep working on healing this blocked throat chakra. I want you to keep expressing yourself, even if it's just to yourself in your room, by yourself, talking to the wall, talking to your dog, recording yourself, journaling. singing songs that you relate to, writing songs, making art, making poetry, whatever it takes. You keep that throat chakra alive. You keep expressing yourself, and you keep allowing your truth to come up, no matter what. Keep going, everybody. The world needs your unique voice.